So for percentile, it sounds a little bit abstract. It sounds a little bit like I'm going to be using some circular logic, but you'll see hopefully it'll make some sense. So a percentile, what we mean is that if you're in a certain percentile, let's say like the 38th percentile, what do we mean is that, this is the value below which 38% of the data lies. Okay, so if you're in the 38th percentile, it means that 38% of the data is below you, I guess in this case right here. It could be you, it could be whatever. So if we have a piece of data and we say that it's in the, 60th percentile, what it really means is that 60% of the data is below this. So if we have, 60%, so the 60th, for example, percentile, then we know what that means then. Okay, so 60th percentile just mean that 60% of the data is below this. So you could say, for example, that, my height is in the 90th percentile. That means 90% of people have a height lower than mine. In other words, I'm in the top 10%. Do you see how you can reverse those? I'm clearly not. I'm 5'10", as Americans say, so I'm actually not very tall. I thought I was medium tall, at least in Canada and the US, but I moved to Denmark here and everybody here's super tall, so it doesn't even count. So you could think of percentile just that. It's whatever percentile you're in, or a value is in, it means that whatever that's, if it's 60th percentile, it just means 60% is below this. All right. So let's see what that does for us. First of all, I really want to point this out. This is awesome. I don't know if this is true or not, but it's hilarious. We blocked, of course, this person's name. I hope it's not a real person. I hope it's fake. But if you look at this, 88 IQ, top 81%. Who can top that? It's just, one of these like Facebook IQ tests you can take, right? It says percentile, 19.31. If you think about it, if you're in the 19th percentile, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean she's in the top 81%, or this particular person here. It means that you're in the, there's only 19% of people that are below you. In other words, you are in the bottom, 19%, you could say. So that's actually really bad. I like this person says, isn't an 88 like super low? I have no idea. So let's say, this has to happen. I guess, some people have to have this. But this IQ tests, of course, are a whole other story, right? They're not necessarily tests of intelligence, just your ability to do well in IQ tests. So let's talk about quartiles then. Quartiles are very much related to percentiles. The reason is quartiles are just equal to certain percentiles. Look at this. If you want the first quartile, think about it, a quarter of 100. So the first quarter is a 25th percentile. That's what this Q1 is, okay? So Q1 is just the 25th percentile. Q2 then is just the 50th percentile, and this is actually called, if you think about it, it's called the median, what we learned before, because it's the middle value, right? If 50% of the data is below this, that's actually equal to the median. So that's the second quartile. The third quartile, known as Q3 sometimes, it's where 70% of the data is below this. And so if you buy that, then we have this final thing called the Interquartile Range, or IQR. And this is a measure of the spread of the data. In other words, what I mean by spread is really like if the data is all located around some value and everything's really, really close to that, then this interquartile range will be very, very small. Whereas if the data is really, really spread out, in other words, let's say it's like heights of people. Let's say you had a class and everybody was the same height pretty much. Then your interquartile range will be very, very small, right? Because there wouldn't be a very big spread of the data. Whereas if you had a class with, really short people, really tall people, and all over the place, then of course that spread would be quite wide. So this is why the interquartile range is actually one of the more interesting ones to measure. And we have an equation for it, and you don't have to memorize it because this is on your formula booklet. And it says this, IQR is Q3 minus Q1. What do we mean by that? The interquartile range is the third quartile minus the first quartile. That's it. So for example, let's say you have some data and you have the 25th percentile is 42, the 50th percentile is 61, the 75th percentile is 79, let's just say. Then what's the interquartile range? That's kind of an almost too dumb question. I hope you can see. We just write it down then. We say, all right, well, IQR. But this is a piece of a question. A lot of exams, there's a piece of the question that's like this. So see what I'm doing? I'm focusing on small pieces of the questions before we can start dealing with entire IB exam questions. For right now, though, the interquartile range, we just write it down to show the examiner we know what we're doing. So we say Q3 minus Q1. We put in Q3. Q3, that's this. The 75th percentile is Q3. And this one right here, this 25th percentile, that's Q1. It's just extra information. The 50th percentile, that's actually the median. So had we been asked for the median, I'd say it's 61. In this case right here, we'll just say 79 minus 42. We can figure that out, right? So this right here, and again, you can do this sort of with a calculator. You can do this by hand. You can do it, by thinking about it. But it's 37. So this is how we do this. This is how we deal with interquartile range.